and then we never get back to it to actually update it until there's some new feature that improves that same view, or has a large or small enough scope so we can add in that extra work.
Sure.
So in that sense, I would always like to put pressure on it to get this in at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely understood, and I completely agree, Dimitri. Absolutely. So I'll work with her and see if we can't get that done. I feel good. I was a little bit hesitant about concerned about having it done by the 1st, but I feel pretty good. Like we can have it done by the end of the milestone. So I'll work with her and make sure that we can stay on top of that. I'll keep you guys posted. But
nice. It's looking good, by the way.
Thanks.
It does.
The one other thing was that this commit component was previously written, so it's slightly different from design. I don't know if you noticed, instead of a branch icon, it's a fork icon. You'll notice that I have this random, because the backend for the pipeline statuses isn't done. So every 2 minutes when it polls, I make a random adjustments for the statuses. So it just barely changed everything. Anyway, the commits, this is a fork icon instead of a branch icon, and this avatar isn't as small as in your design. I don't know how much you care about this, Dimitri. I can make another component, but this one is just a little, since it's in different places, it's hard for me to change it that much, if that makes sense.
It's looking good in my opinion. What we're trying to do, so from my perspective and from the UX design perspective, what we're trying to do, and this influences our designs quite a bit, is that we're trying to adhere to this 8 pixel or 4 pixel, or the smallest increment we would go towards is, I believe, 2 pixel grid, so to say.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to weed out of the entire front end is these loosely measured things like 15 pixels, 13 pixels. That doesn't make sense. Those things are tripping us over every time that we encounter them, and they will never be updated again until we touch those views again. Same problem which I just talked about. But just from an initial viewpoint, this looks great.
Yeah, I've been trying to match your sketch pretty directly.
Did you use the sketch measure, the export? Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, that should output the correct measures, but I've seen errors in it sometimes.
Sometimes there will be one part where you see the difference and it's 1 pixel off, but it's I know what it's supposed to be, because it's supposed to be 8 pixels instead of 9 pixels, as you were saying. Anyways, all right.
It's just last day, I know.
Yeah, I do have a few questions, unless you guys have any questions for me right now.
I've got a couple, if it's okay.
Of course.
So what was the story with the fork versus the branch icon? I missed that, I think.
Yeah, so this icon next to the master.
Right.
In the design, it's this.
The branch. And that's because we're reusing a component or something that it has.
Yeah, there's a component in the pipelines. I don't see.
I'm just wondering if it should be. What I'm thinking about in my head is it a fork somewhere that it should be a branch somewhere else too?
I'm always worried about.
Not that we would change that in this one, but maybe we would open an issue to just consider.
It would probably be better as a branch. So it's using this same one here.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm just separately going to open an issue. I mean, I don't know, Dimitri, unless you think that should be a fork.
No, I think that should be a branch for sure.
I'll take the action of opening an issue about that.
Perfect.
Just perhaps a question. I'm actually interested in that. I'm going to shoot towards Scott and John. Is that for these kinds of changes, right? So it's almost let's be clear on this. We're sure that this needs to be changed towards the branch icon instead of the fork icon, right? So I always wonder. what the workflow or the mindset is of front end in order to change it, because it touches a lot more views than just the view that we're tackling, right? So I sometimes wonder, like, can't we just include it into the scope or just into the same merge request we're trying to, to implement this feature with and change it for all those other views as well? Or do you rather do it in a separate merge request and then, get it reviewed by different people if that is needed or something like that? I always wonder, I don't want to lose velocity over these things and not get them changed. I want to get them changed without, having too much friction in our process.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to both. The pro being that gets done as soon as it's seen, rather than getting on the back burner as soon as this issue is made and then no one wants to take it. The con is I feel like when creating separate issues, we have it, it's nice to see that this is a problem and that more eyes are on it, and that it doesn't get lost in the merge request for this scope because no one's really looking for that because this merge request is a different purpose.
I think that, just to add on to that, I think the con of that in my mind is also that we can lose track of these things, Dimitri, kind of like you mentioned earlier. If we see something, it's nice to like at least call it out in a separate issue, like Scott's saying, before we lose track of it. But losing momentum is definitely a concern. So just kind of reiterating what both of you have said already. I think depending on the size of it, maybe we make a game time decision and say, if it's a quick thing, like, yeah, let's just do it. If it's something that we want more eyes on and we want to call out a little bit more, we should just pull it out into an issue, but then try to get it done immediately in the same milestone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Just perhaps a little bit more context from my side. I understand and I want to put it in a separate issue, actually. However, I feel also that the scope and thus the weight of that issue is actually smaller than 1, which is the smallest increment we can give to an issue, which means if we have a lot of these issues with those really small things, the scope of combining them all is actually bigger than the actual effort that needs to be put in order to get them all fixed, right? And that, slows down prioritization processes and those kind of things.
That's a total fair point. Yeah, total fair.
I know, I'm not looking for a solution right now, but these are always thoughts that run through my mind when somebody says, hey, do you really want it fixed? I don't know, like preferably yes, but I don't know if it, aligns with your processes and such.
Yeah. I'm gonna make some notes just we can iterate on that a little bit.
Okay.
I have 1,000 other questions as the new guy in the room though too. Sorry.
Go on.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I'm looking at the design. Oh shoot. Okay, I'm looking at the design, and I'm looking at this. There's 2 avatars, right? There's one on the commit message underneath master, right, if you will. That
Correct.
Is here, and then there's one to the right, to the left of the whole thing. What is the intended difference of those 2?
So the difference,
actual difference.
The difference is that commit message avatar is the author of the commit.
Mm-hmm.
So say Dimitri committed something and merged it to master. So that's there. His icon's next to it because he's the latest person to have a commit on master. The icon to the left is the person who triggered the latest pipeline. So not necessarily the author. It could be the author of the commit because it's like a automatic pipeline trigger.
Right.
But I could manually trigger a pipeline for master.
Okay.
Yeah, those things can be quite different. Say that, for example, Marin uses this, right? And he merges something to some other project or some other branch. Doesn't mean he has done the last commit, right? And there will be 2 different avatars shown there. You can see exactly who did what.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
if Marin merges one of his engineers' commits, Marin's face would be on the left and the engineer's face would be underneath the commit, theoretically, or as designed. Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. other questions. Oh, okay. So two other questions. One, I see again in the design and sometimes here a time, right? So like when, I'm assuming that's when this pipeline kicked off.
I think in the spec description was, I think, Dimitri, did you say it was the time that that pipeline finished?
Finished, maybe?
That's what I understood and was going off of. Yeah, so the reason why it's not there is if the pipeline is running,
Okay.
or for some reason it doesn't have the last time finished or something. So it only shows that if it's actually finished the pipeline.
Okay,
Yeah,
and that matches with the pipelines page. Okay, I like it. Okay.
So I have a small note there. It doesn't match with the pipeline page.
Oh, really?
No, that is the particular thing here, and why it shows the clock icon instead of the calendar icon, which is what it would be on the pipeline list page, as you can see here. So this is when the pipeline started. This is when it was scheduled to run, so to say. And the time that we are showing here is when the pipeline finished. So on this page, you want to see if there's something wrong with your projects, right? Like, and how long ago it has gone wrong. Like, how long ago did it fail, something like that. So there are two different time notations.
Gotcha. Okay.
It should be clear, by the way, if you hover over on it with the tooltip, I believe so.
So do you want me to show like last finished in that tooltip or something?
Yeah, we could do that. I think that's a good idea.
I don't remember if there was something like that here. I can add that or something. That see what I can do. Can you write that?
I have a question about like those cards that are empty. This is not the intention, right?
Yeah. So these ones, because this is like a test environment, some of these don't actually have commits. They're just empty repos, and I just have them here. The pipeline underneath is just like manually added things, so they're not actually real.
So do we have like a case where things could be loading or there's like an empty state for it? I'm sorry if it's already answered in the issue.
No, that's I was actually going to ask that because I noticed that when things don't have a commit, do we want something here in that card saying no commits so far? Would that be beneficial? Right now, I just have an empty space and just making sure the card is the same size.
Yeah, let me see. My answer is generally yes. Dimitri may have a specific opinion. Let me see what I was going to go see, Dimitri, what the empty pipeline page state is.
My first thoughts towards this were it's an edge case. I think as you have to deliberately add these projects to this page, you wouldn't choose a project that doesn't have a single commit yet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it happens that.
Yeah, you can just decide to add and then start working with your dashboard. Nothing stops really the user, right, from doing that.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, if it's not in scope for this, it's one thing, but I would love to have an empty state that's meaningful.
Yeah. Empty state with no commit on default branch.
Okay.
Make a note, so I'll update the issue as well.
Thanks.
Those are good things, though.
Yeah. So I think there's two empty states to consider, maybe. I think there's an empty state of no commits, right, which is probably even more edge. But then also the pipeline no pipelines have been run, right? Like I don't know if those are the same for this for the purposes of this dashboard, right? But you know what I'm saying, Dimitri? Like I've got a repository that is my like dot files, right? Like I'll send it to the group just because we're talking about it right now. But it's gitlab.com/Brendan/nextmac, right? It's all the dot files I have for my computer. And so there's lots and lots of commits for that, but no pipeline because I don't build that, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's worth considering for this or if just empty means one or the other, empty means no pipeline. I don't know. Might be worth thinking about.
Yeah, Scott, how do you think about like a simple empty state that hides almost everything and just has some text in there, like I don't know, no pipeline, no CI configure, or something like that? I'll look into that into providing you any mockups. But I mean, like, if there is no commit that had yet, or if there's no pipeline or CI activated yet for that project, I mean, it's not going to show anything. It shouldn't show anything because there is nothing to show.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Awesome. One other question I had. Sorry, Scott. I know you got other stuff.
No, you're fine.
And we got 10 minutes
I
left.
mean, you're hitting some of my questions, so you're good.
Good. Is you mentioned it, I think, in passing. It updates every 2 minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw that somewhere in the issue. I went to look yesterday, but I couldn't find it again. It was mentioned by Jason, I think.
Sure.
Dimitri, do you remember if there was a final decision on polling time?
No, I don't remember that. I believe there was like a default thing or functionality you were going to use for that.
Yeah, I think it was every 2 minutes. I can look again or make comment on the issue to
yeah. I mean,
finalize that.
Is that a pattern that we have elsewhere maybe already? Other things?
I think normally we do shorter time.
Right.
But because this is a lot of information in one page and potentially a lot more information, I think Jason wanted a slower poll time.
That makes sense. I think that conceptual. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. And then one last thing. What's under the dots? Is that just how I get rid of it? If I don't want it anymore?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just removed right now.
All right.
Yeah, and potentially, and this is taken from the other, or from the existing operation pack.
Operations dashboard, yep.
But I mean, maybe it's not ideal yet, but the idea was there to also like, hey, if you want to change later on, if we iterate on this, like, hey, I want to change this towards a certain tag or a different branch or something. I know we could configure it that way, or I don't know, there were some extendability with that. But we need to see.
Yep. And then my last question is, there's been this debate ongoing about tiering. Does that impact front end or back end or both, or I'm not sure. Because the operations dashboard originally was only an ultimate, but the plan was to bring the functionality of the pipelines into premium, but then the alerting, obviously, and any other monitoring kind of things that come into here eventually would be ultimate only. I don't know if that's...
It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, Scott, if you could just check with John about that, that'd be great. I just want to try and get that sorted before release. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got some questions. So say that the alerts are not activated, right? So you have not implemented any functionality so that it's working. Then it will simply hide it, right?
So yeah, I had that question. I'm not very familiar with how alerts work. Where is this information coming from? Is it like a metrics page or something they have to configure? Or I don't know. I was having a hard time figuring out how to test it.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure because that comes from the monitoring team, and I've never done it either. That's a good question. I can figure that out with Josh.
All right. Well, I just when I pinged Mattia yesterday on the issue, I just asked him to provide me with like the alerts metric. I was going to ask you because on the spec we have here, like we have the number of alerts. Sometimes the alert isn't there if it's not configured. I don't know how to tell from the response if the alert is configured or not. Maybe if it's null or something instead of a count. And then sometimes we have this errors is greater than 9%. is that whole stream given to me, or is it just like a 9% given to me? Do you know? Or am I supposed to infer
this should
that?
already be implemented. I did not change any of the existing functionality for that subcomponent, so to say.
Okay.
Yeah, ideally, you wouldn't be having to touch it. The only reason I would think you'd have to touch it in this iteration would be if we want to hide it based on license. The rest of it should work. But I'll ask Josh so that you can actually play with it.
I know that I've discussed at least one thing related to this with Josh is that we decided that we didn't want to put in any extra discovery features or functionality that if you don't have it configured, that it shows anything up or something like, hey, this view can also show alerts or something like that. That is for any future iteration. It's not a problem right now, as we're adding new functionality to this page, which is a little bit more apparent, so to say.
Yeah. And I think today, the way it functions is just always says 0 alerts no matter what. I think.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's doing. It has like an alert count that is received from the back end. But that's really all the alerts that I see. And it also has like a link to the alerts metrics page or something like that. Yeah. But if I went to it, it just on localhost, it just said to like set it up, and I didn't know how to set it up.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I added when I added a project that had when I add a project that does not have Ultimate, it says 0 alerts, none, and then doesn't show me master and the commit and the timing. But on a project that does have Ultimate, it does. So, yeah, I'm going to talk to Josh and try and sort out what the current state is. Again, I don't want to blow the scope up of this to fix or change any of it. But
okay, so if nothing else, we'll just leave it as is.
Leave as is. Yeah, yeah. Worst case scenario, leave as is. Ideally, we'll come up with hey, this is the really easy answer to what we want to do.
All right, sounds good.
No, I got a few more in terms of like how this relates to the mockups and the things that provided. First thing was still I want to touch a little bit on the badges. The middle badge that represents the current project. I would prefer that to be a full badge icon with text in there, so it's a little bit more apparent that is the current pipeline's status. So wondering if you could put that in. I know you're waiting on the new badges, merge requests, etc. to be done.
Yeah.
Do you consider even if that merchant you have to have that in? I consider that at the minimal.
I had like these. This badge in there, but it was a little too big, a little like too tall in there. So I was like, oh, I'll just take it out. The alignment's not working. I'll just put this icon in for now. I can try to fiddle with it or something if you want. See if I can fit it in there.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, the added, the size of it and the text of it to draw a little bit more attention. With which the information hierarchy is a little bit better sorted, so to say.
That makes sense.
And the last thing I wanted to ask was about, so inside of the mockup, the main mockup, right, with all the different widgets in it, what I tried to do there is show every possible situation. So, hey, you have the middle one in the bottom. It shows without alerts, but it has a failed pipeline, so it's red. And then the next one to it is,
Yeah. So you're wanting to make sure that those situations are done? Or,
yeah, so I would prefer if we could see an example of each of every one of those.
Yeah.
And so you also see the yellow ones, etc. I know this is a lot to ask, but this makes it easy to hear,
No, of course. Let me see if I can just make some changes here on the code or something.
Because you probably need to work with mock data, right?
yeah, that was the thing. Let's see. Maybe
Yes, I don't know if you've used it up until now, but I've had some merge requests where they use the review apps as a way to review the merge request, which is so incredibly awesome. I gotta say, I don't know if it's possible for this one, but I know it would be so lovely if the whole front end team and back end team are going to use that going forward, because oh man, it has saved me so much time already. I'm always fighting with the GDK.
Amen. Amen. I feel like when you don't use GDK every day in your job, it's like you get out of date enough with something that, like, when you go to use it again, it's like, oh no. Well, let me just set it up from scratch again. It'll be easier.
Yeah, I sometimes had the notice of like, okay, let's just delete it and reinstall it all back again, because that is faster than me figuring out the problem and fixing it.
Exactly. Hey, quick question before, as Scott's working on that. I clicked record, but late into the call. Is it okay if I throw this meeting onto our unfiltered GitLab channel? Cool. Next time we do this, we'll live stream it and really put on the pressure with everybody.
Oh, wow.
I just think it'd be good for the community to see, like, how we're talking through this stuff. It's been a great discussion. So thanks.
No, this is good. We should do this. I believe that Jason was talking about it as well for the release team.
Oh,
yeah, I know it's a little bit of a GitLab anti-pattern to do stuff sync, but I feel like a tiny bit of sync conversation can go a really long way. So
yeah,
don't tell Sid I said that. He's watching this video on YouTube right now.
I'm trying to figure out. Let's see the best way to do this. Man, all right. What if I...
P.S. Brendan, while Scott is busy, you're recording? Are you recording to your local storage on your PC? And then
I think I clicked record to cloud, which I think we'll just put it in like Google Drive, and then I can upload it.
But I really wonder how that functionality works, because does it automatically put it in the right Drive folder, and then you also have to upload it to YouTube? I never know.
Yeah, I think it's actually it's going to end up creating. I think it's taken me since October 2017 to figure this out, but I think I figured it out. I think it will actually create a folder called Pipeline Dashboard Sneak Peek, which is the name of this meeting in the calendar, and that's where it'll be. I think.
So, and in that sense, how does it know about the calendar appointment name?
That Zoom. That's a really good question.
I'm just like, everybody knows how this stuff works except me.
I have no idea. Now I'm like, do I even know what I'm talking about? Because I don't know. Okay, sorry, Scott, you were.
Yeah, so I got one state at least where the pipeline is passed, but there is an alert.
I see. This is nice.
So that's one.
Oh, cool. I didn't even think through that.
I think awesome. We saw. Did we saw failed, right, already?
Yeah, most of them I saw. I believe the running state I was wondering about, and the error state where it's like the main window is yellow because of the errors, and then if you have an error but also have a failed pipeline, then the whole thing still becomes red.
Oh, okay. Oh, so got it. Let's see.
So, I mean, if the main pipeline is running still, right, it cannot show any downstreams because it has not yet triggered them, right? I mean, it's going to be.
Oh, is that
more when you have a signal grasp?
So you're breaking up a little bit. So are you saying that if the main pipeline is running, then it doesn't show the downstream?
No, because it like generally speaking, it shouldn't have triggered them. I'm speaking correct there, right, Brandon?
That is correct. Today.
Yeah, today. I'm on the same thing.
Yeah. There's a plan. Yeah, it gets complicated. there's a plan in a couple of releases to allow the inverse relationship, right? Like today, the parent needs to know about the children, if you will, right? The parent triggers the children, and parent-child's not the right word here, but it helps. The upstream pipeline triggers the downstream pipelines. But that's really not a great pattern, actually, because if you have like a real library that people can use throughout an enterprise, you should be able to say, I use library X, and anytime X completes, then run mine, right? So we're adding the concept of triggered by. Like, I'm triggered by this upstream thing I depend on. But that's an edge case we don't need to worry about right now. But
Oh, yeah.
I think it's okay to say, if my pipeline's running, I don't know what's going on with downstream pipelines. That's an acceptable thing to say.
Okay, so I haven't made that case yet, or made that change. Right now, it shows them all if it has them. So I can change that to where if the current pipeline is running, then it doesn't show any of the downstream ones. This has failed. I'm trying to think of other cases. There are like mixed ones. I can like go
there's
back.
some cases. Like there's like a downstream, like one that Dimitri has here is my pipeline passed, but downstream failed. Right?
Yeah.
Which is a little bit weird.
I believe I saw that.
I think I saw that though. Yeah, I think I saw that too.
Yeah, it happens pretty often when it's random.
Yep.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the question here, Scott, is the one that's in the middle on the bottom, right? What is that? Just made up data? That the fact that
it's made up.
Right. That's fine. You probably wouldn't have that downstream data too, right? Like I think you handling that case makes sense, but like today in GitLab, when my pipeline's running, it's not going to have a concept of, and then there's going to be a pipeline after me. Like it won't know that. Got it. In any way.
That makes sense.
So just be aware of that as you're thinking about that case. Is like that data to the right of me is probably not existent in real life.
Okay.
So. Alrighty. This is really awesome. This is going to be like incredible. I'm really excited for the design and the implementation of this.
Yeah, and PS, last thing I saw when looking at this view, by the way, I saw that the spacing between widgets, the idea there was that the spacing vertically between the widgets and the upper row with the search, your project and add project, operation dashboard, title, header bar kind of thing. So these spaces are all the same. So you have like a grid pattern, right? Got it.
Yeah, I'll fix that.
Nice. Yeah. Apart from that, like it really looks awesome. Looks really great.
I was going to ask one more thing. How are we going to handle a lot of downstream pipelines? Say that it overflows.
That's a good question.
Great question for all of GitLab.
I wondered about this. I thought like may not be like a main case. Though I like the idea with them being stacked and not like shown next to each other is similar to the comments in merge request diffs inside the sidelines. Sorry, did I freeze for a second? But there, at some point, you have an extra number in there. So I hoped you could reuse that pattern.
This is what it currently happens. So I was going to ask you what it was. So you're saying that it would have like an extra number or something on the side? I'll go look.
You open a merge request with lots of discussion on the div.
Lots of comments on the divs.
Yeah,
I was trying to find one the other day, but I couldn't.
And you'll have this problem with even less than this, right? Because the badge, once we get the badge, is wider, significantly wider.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll actually have this problem will come up with less downstream than even.
Yeah. So I'll look to see if I can reuse that component or something
Yeah, because it also slides them out of each other, so you can, better see. So if you hover over them, I believe they slide out of each other. So there should be some kind of max that it still fits inside of the container with the maximum amount of downstreams. Yeah, just check how it's done in the merge request diffs, and it would be nice if we could reuse that here.
Okay, are we wanting that same effect where it only shows one, and then when you hover over it, it slides out like that?
No, when the hovered out state, because we have more space here.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it's good that you said that.
Okay, let me see. I'm checking my notes to see if there was any other last minute questions. I think that should be good.
Oh, here I found a merge request. Do you want to? If you stop sharing, I can.
Yeah.
Share. I think I found what Dimitri's talking about. Let's just see real quick since we're already over time. Okay. So, and I can send this to you if it's right in the end. So here, there's a comment on this line. Let's see.
Oh, I see.
3 and then a +2.
Can you zoom over one of the other avatars? What happens?
One of the other well,
when it's fanned out, can you hover over?
Oh, okay, yeah. Let me see.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it animated, but this is good as well. This is actually more simple. Yeah, this is good. This would be nice. And then if it says 2 more downstreams, if you click that, can you then go towards the pipeline detail page? Because we cannot go into expand it ever more. Like it would be crazy.
Oh yeah.
It'd be nice to just go to the first downstream pipeline or whatever downstream pipeline that represents. Okay, yeah, I like that a lot actually. I hadn't seen that before. All right, cool.
So each downstream icon will go to its own pipeline when you click on it, and then the plus number will go to the current project's pipeline details page.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see all the downstreams.
Then you'll be, and that eventually, not this release, but soon is going to have infinite scroll built in a way that's much more maintainable. Like I don't want infinite scroll on this little tiny view.
Yeah, definitely not.
Okay, awesome. This was really, really useful. Thank you, Scott, for volunteering.
Yeah,
appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, have a good day. Talk to you.
Thanks.